Blame it on the evil white man Stevel. Blame it on the orange man and his people. Blame it on the racism. Blame it on the racism. Blame it on Pete, his friend's misogyny. Blame it on the white supremacy. Blame it on the racism. Oh, Johnny B. Biden and his incompetence are back with a vengeance. Everybody, Johnny's back. All right. Earlier this morning, we briefly talked about this period of uncertainty that we are currently in. Market is volatile. The Trumper is implementing disaster relief. He's called in the fire department to put out the flaming ass fire that was set by John Biden. Mainstream media is pretending that the last 3 months were the worst 100 days in American history. But it's strange. You know what I don't really hear about anymore? I never hear about the southern border. Shipments of Preparation H have been halted because the southern caboose is no longer being bruised. The other day, I'm driving down I-10, and there were Border Patrol agents watching the flow of traffic. It's the first time I have seen Border Patrol agents on the interstate in years. You know what else I'm not hearing too much about right now? Inflation. I wonder if it has anything to do with inflation declining by 0.5% from February to March. Now, that being said, the first 100 days of the Orange Man threatening democracy have not been perfect. The implementation of tariffs was disastrous, at least initially. There's a lot of instability in the economy, which directly affects Uncle KC. When the market is unstable, one of the first things businesses eliminate is ad spending. How does Uncle KC get paid? Ad spending. But even with that being the case, the absolute worst days with the Trumper are significantly better than the best days with Johnny B. Biden. And we were given another reminder of the incompetence of John Biden this week as Johnny B. has embarked on a press tour. Now, obviously, John did not organize this press tour himself. Hell, our former fearless leader, he can barely set his alarm clock. Jill, my clock is messed up again. It says 1700. It's showing the inflation rate under my administration instead of showing me the time. Back in February, 2 weeks after he left the White House. Well, Johnny B didn't actually physically leave the White House because he was barely there. He spent most of his time as president in his Delaware dungeon playing Dungeons and Dragons with his pretend friends they-them. But 2 weeks after the Trumper was inaugurated, it was announced that John Biden was being represented by CAA. Now, for those that don't know, CAA stands for Creative Artist Agency. It's one of the biggest agencies in sports and entertainment. Zion Williamson, he used to be represented by CAA. Ellen DeGeneres, Stevie Spielberg, some rapper named As Soon As Possible Rocky. These are all clients that are represented by CAA. And now, they've got the prestigious honor of representing John Biden, which is kind of strange when you think about it. Normally, when presidents leave office, they are ready to get out of the spotlight. My good friend George Bush, my good friend Georgie, he's barely been seen since early 2009. Even Barry Obama stepped away from the spotlight initially once he left the White House. Now, Big Mike is trying to re-enter the mainstream with that doofus podcast she's hosting with her feminine brother Greg. But Barry doesn't really have to worry about the spotlight with the podcast because no one's watching it. But for some reason, the rapidly aging John Biden can't let go of the attention. This week, his agency booked him on a press tour. As expected, it didn't take long to confirm that America made the right decision. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Now, obviously, CAA was smart enough not to book Joe Biden with real media. They didn't call Joe Rogan. They didn't book him with Patrick Bet-David or even someone neutral like the Call My Daddy girl, which in John Biden's case, he'd have to call his daddy with a cup phone. But instead of booking Johnny B with media that normal people actually watch, they booked him on the same mainstream media outlets that can't draw flies to a fresh turd. They booked him with the same mainstream media that basically lost Cam Harris the election. Johnny's first interview, it wasn't even with an American media outlet. They booked him all the way over in Europe for a hard-hitting interview with the BBC. The interview was painful to watch. Now, the woke media, they are claiming that John Biden was vicious. Our hero attacked the orange man. At one point during the interview, as he was talking about the Trumper taking over Greenland, the Panama Canal, renaming the Gulf of Mexico, John Biden said, "What the hell's going on here? This Weisenheimer's taking over the world." It was the same question that the half dozen people watching were asking themselves. What the hell's going on here? This dude's had 4 months off, and he still can't complete a coherent thought. Now, the next stop on the tour for the immaculate return of Johnny B. Biden was a lovely visit with the Yentas on The View. Since they were visiting the Yentas, Johnny invited pretend Dr. Jill along so she could be an honorary Yenta. Speaking of pretend Dr. Jill, I would imagine that she was the one who influenced her husband to sign with CAA. Over the last couple of months, I have read some books about the Biden administration and what went on behind the scenes. The pretend doctor was one of the only people pressuring Johnny B to stay in the presidential race. It was reported that Jill enjoyed the lifestyle. She enjoyed the attention that came along with pretending to be the first lady. Once you're addicted to mainstream attention, it's very hard to overcome. So I would imagine that pretend Dr. Jill was instrumental in keeping her husband in the spotlight. Either way, they're visiting the Yentas this morning on The View. One of the first questions came from the anonymous Yenta. "KC, is she the one married to the Pepperidge Farm guy?" "No, I'm talking about the blonde. I think her name is Sally or Sheila. She's hard to remember because she doesn't possess a special talent. It's easy to remember the whoopee cushion and her talented boodle flute. It's easy to remember the performances of the great pretender Alyssa the Farrah Griffin. Obviously, it's easy for me to remember the radiance of my personal favorite, Asuncion. But the Yentas without a special talent, they are harder to remember. But anyway, Sally asked John Biden about cackling Cam Harris losing to the Trumper in a landslide. She wanted to know why cackling Cam lost. Naturally, John Biden had a scripted answer. He had the perfect demographic to blame: the white man. Watch for yourself.
But I was surprised. I wasn't surprised because they went the route of the sexist route, the whole route. I mean, this is a woman, she's this, she's that. I mean, it really, I've never seen quite as successful and a consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country and a woman of mixed race.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, John Biden's right. The media was obsessed with the gender of Cam Harris. Hell, a lot of the media was impressed that Cam Harris identified as a woman. Most in the media can't define a woman. They were also obsessed with her race. But just because the mainstream media was obsessed with race and gender, that does not mean normal people were. Race and gender had absolutely nothing to do with Cam Harris losing. The main reason that normal people didn't vote for cackling Cam was because she was significantly more incompetent than her predecessor. You know how hard you have to work to be more incompetent than John Biden? At least Johnny B had an excuse. He's an aging fossil. As John Biden was stammering on about mythical racism, I kept waiting for the follow-up question. Now, I wasn't expecting it to come from Son Hostin. I wasn't expecting it from the whoopee cushion. Hell, Whoopi Goldberg was damn near out of breath trying to fill the room with boodle breeze to disguise all the lies. But I was hoping Alyssa Farah Griffin, who has recently been the voice of reason on The View, I was hoping that she was going to ask John Biden, if you're blaming race for Cam Harris's loss, how come race wasn't a factor when Barack Obama was elected? Twice! If I had to guess, I'm assuming that question wasn't allowed. Several minutes later, John Biden was incoherently talking about the Trumpers' first 100 days in office. According to Johnny B., it's been the worst 100 days in the history of America. Watch for yourself.
Do you think you would have beat him?
Yeah, he still got 7 million fewer votes.
Yes.
There you go, okay? A lot of people didn't show up. We're very close in those toss-up states. It was it wasn't a slam dunk, and look, every time I've been on the show, which I've been fortunate to be on more than once. Thanks for having me. Is that we talk? You guys don't focus on as much, and I think it's good on polling numbers. But let me put it this way: he's had the worst 100 days any president's ever had.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah.
Let me give you some of Biden's accomplishments in his first 100 days, and I'll let you decide who has been worse. In his first 3 months, John Biden established a White House Gender Policy Council. He wanted to ensure that all 72 genders were treated with equality. He reversed the immigration policies of the Trumper, which opened the southern border wider than the Bruce Caboose after the Butt Bongo Festival. He reversed another Trump policy that removed funding from cities who allowed BLM to riot. Peacefully protest. He ensured that identifiers in the LGBT community who were fleeing foreign countries were given political asylum. He stopped construction of the border wall. He required non-citizens to be included in the census. Do I need to keep going? Oh yeah. 4 months later, he implemented the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan and started talking about transitory inflation that never went away. So, you tell me what was worse. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.